Hey everybody. Before the start of episode 56, I want to take this time to acknowledge that while today is Canada Day, in which we normally celebrate our patriotic pride, it certainly doesn't feel that way. With the recent discoveries of many unmarked graves across the country in former residential schools, in which I fear more will be discovered, it's a day of mourning. It's a day to acknowledge that these injustices that were in the past and still seen today needs to stop. Today, I wear orange to stand united with our indigenous communities in the hopes of looking for the same thing that I know our indigenous communities want. Peace, healing, and justice. And while I am proud to be Canadian for many reasons such as my parents immigrating here to have a better life for my brother and I know that our indigenous communities were also looking for the same thing in which they absolutely deserve. So today, while I do open the show by saying Happy Canada Day, I say Happy Canada Day with the thought and intention knowing that yes, there are some good things that Canada has done to be celebrated, but it's also a time to take a step forward, to start the healing process, to start the process to make sure that these indigenous communities get what they deserve. And that's peace and equality within this country so we can truly be a true North strong Canada. Happy Canada Day, everybody. And yes, it is time to review the next portion of our bracket. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to episode 56 of Under the Middle Rope. I'm your host, Jose Taboada, and another weekend of voting is through. Another solid voting. A lot of upsets. I'm going to say that right now off the bat because, of course, one guest knows, but the other doesn't, who I'm going to bring in right now. Pete Atkinson is back, and joining us for the first time in a little while is RJ Stacy. Hey, gentlemen. Welcome back.
Hello,
RJ,
guys.
good to hear you. See, Pete, I got it again in one take.
I'm not buying you a beer, dickhead.
Oh, okay. Well, I thought I was going to get a beer. Anyways,
No beer.
yes. Okay, that's unfortunate. There's a lot to go through. RJ, you know the results. You were participating throughout the weekend. So before we reveal it to Pete, your quick thoughts on it, just like summarized.
It wasn't the one I voted for.
Fair point. Fair point.
That's
So
it. I voted for a lot of losers. I'm not gonna lie.
that's Pete. That should say a lot. That should say a lot. So with that,
Well, to be fair, that makes me a bit worried because I feel like in the past podcast, me and RJ tend to agree on a lot of things, and if he's voted for a lot of losers, I'm a little bit concerned. So
I have a feeling that I have a differing opinion on some of them, but I definitely picked a lot of losers that I thought were going to be winners for sure.
Interesting.
That being said, let us reveal our bracket right now. This was the strike division that you guys were voting on this past weekend. Curb Stomp taking on the Buckshot Lariat, the Black Arrow taking on the GTS, Black Mass taking on Hogan's Leg Drop, Shooting Star Press taking on the Clothesline from Hell, the Coup de Grace taking on the Running Knee, the Sweet Chin Music taking on the Spear, the Claymore taking on the 619, and the Kamigoye taking on the Rainmaker. So without that being said, let's just get right into it. Here is the results of the Elite 8, Curb Stomp and GTS advancing. Black Mass, who was the first 100% sweep, completely annihilated Hogan's Leg Drop, taking on the Shooting Star Press. The Running Knee, taking on the Sweet Chin Music. The Claymore taking on the Rainmaker. So aside from the Black Mass, getting 100% of the vote, Claymore destroyed Rey Mysterio, which in hindsight would make sense. The Rainmaker defeating the Kamigoye easily. And some of our tighter matchups was actually the Sweet Chin Music and the Spear, but Sweet Chin Music barely edges that one out, no pun intended. Very, very close. So, Pete, your initial thoughts?
I agree with two of these results.
Which is...
Yeah, I think I voted for a lot.
The Black Mass beating the Atomic Leg Drop because if any move on this entire thing deserved 0%, it's the Atomic Leg Drop. It is a travesty of a finisher. It is shocking. It is rubbish, and I'm glad everybody unanimously agrees on that. And the Black Mass is fantastic. And I agree with the Claymore being the 619 because it is a better move. Did you know how the Claymore actually came about as a finisher?
No, actually.
I think I saw a video on this. Wasn't it like a mistake?
Yeah, Drew McIntyre slipped when he was trying to do a big boot.
Yeah.
And he was
And it
meant
looks sick.
to be a big boot, and his foot slipped forward as he was going to hit it, and he like ended up like diving forward and kicking the guy in the head, and basically got a huge reaction from the crowd there. So he just started using it as a move.
I did not know that. Really?
Yeah. So
Wow.
I agree with that one. The Rainmaker beating the Kamigoye just tells me that the Rainmaker is more famous, and that's why it won. Right, because the Kamigoye is by far the better of those two moves by a mile. The Black Arrow is definitely better than GTS. The Buckshot, I prefer the Buckshot Lariat. The Curb Stomp, I can understand why that one won, but I just don't agree. I love the Clothesline from Hell. I've said it before. I absolutely love it, but again, I can understand why that one lost. I just would have voted the other way. I've got no concerns on that one. The running knee beating the coup de grace, though.
Yeah, that was a big one. I think that was
fantastic.
I think that was one of the first of many upsets in the first round and moving forward. Although
and also, to piss Jose off, I think the spear is better than the Sweet Chin Music.
Yeah, I'm not surprised, buddy. RJ, any other quick thoughts before I go to the final four?
I think I voted for 1, 2, 3 of these winners.
3 of the winners.
I voted for. I was tossed and turned on the Curb Stomp and Buckshot Lariat, and I think I actually did vote for the Curb Stomp and may have regretted it. I did vote for the Black Mass, obviously, as everybody did. I actually voted for I didn't vote for the Rainmaker either. So yeah, I only voted for 2 of these. No, I voted for the Claymore. Yeah, so I got 3 of these.
So me and RJ agree. So we got that.
I will say though,
no, I did vote for the Shooting Star Press actually. Sorry, I voted.
I'm okay with that one.
Flippy shit.
I'm fine with losing.
Yeah, I'm on record. Said in the past few weeks that I love the Shooting Star Press. It's something that I wish I could do if I didn't have a fear of heights and or like just the thought of being upside down. I will say though, this bottom half of the bracket, those are dream matches if you really think about it. Daniel Bryan, Shawn Michaels, Drew McIntyre, and Okada. I think those would be pretty good if HBK was still in this prime, mind you. But that's just me. So in saying that, I'm just gonna forget. I'm not gonna ask you what he thinks is gonna move on. I'm just gonna show it right now because again, I can't wait for this. The GTS beats out the Curb Stomp. The Black Mass beats out the Shooting Star Press. The Sweet Chin Music defeats Daniel Bryan as running knee, and then the Claymore takes care of the Rainmaker in the final four. With I believe if my math is right, yeah, the Claymore got the biggest margin to win here at 75% over 25. A little closer with the Sweet Chin Music, but not really. Our biggest matchup was actually the Curb Stomp and the GTS, or at least the closest battle there. Just edging out. There's your final four. Right, final four, gentlemen.
It's definitely not the right final four.
I do have a question. When you set this bracket up, were you trying to do like 1 versus 16, like 2 versus like 15, or were you just trying to kind of match up? Because there was some tougher first round matchups in this division for me. Like I like the Curb Stomp and the Buckshot Lariat. I think they both were potential final fours if potentially broken up a little bit different in the bracket. So I think that's part of the reason why we ended up with a couple that I don't necessarily agree with.
I'll be honest, I definitely was not doing 1 versus 16, any of those type of things. I was trying to do some interesting matchups to see where people's things was. Example I gave to Jose last time was like Shooting Star Press, Clothesline from Hell. I was like going from the epitome of old-fashioned to the epitome of modern style wrestling on that side of things. Curb Stomp Buckshot was just like 2 popular wrestlers from different promotions. See what won there. Kamigoye Rainmaker, I just went, let's have a Japanese bracket in it. So it definitely was not on that basis. It was just things I thought would measure up interestingly. And I'll be honest, when I set it up, I thought the Sweet Chin Music might have got there. And to be fair, I thought 3 out of these 4 might have actually made it. I thought the Black Mass had a chance of getting through because I think it's a fantastic move. I thought the Sweet Chin Music had a chance of getting through just because of how popular Shawn Michaels is, rather than it just being the super kick itself. I thought the wrestler popularity might win there. And I thought the Claymore had a sneaking chance of winning that bottom bracket because of I thought the Kamigoye, honestly, in my opinion, the Kamigoye is actually the best of those 4 finishes in that bottom 4. but it's so not well known that it just wasn't getting the votes, and I feel like that's a shame for it because it's a brutal knee. The Kamigoye, I love that move
for sure.
Well, on that note, these two, I will say that these two Final Four matchups were tight is an understatement. They were so close. I know once again I was tweeting out multiple times. We cannot have a tie because some of these matches started off with a tie right away and didn't break until like the last hour, the last half hour for both of these matchups. And again, like I said, it's upset central because the Black Mass fell short of the final. And in my opinion, the Sweet Chin Music also fell short. I would have thought that the Sweet Chin Music beat out the Claymore, but again, that's just my personal preference. The GTS had a surprisingly big margin to win once the deadlock was broken there. But again, like I said, Sweet Chin Music Claymore was the tightest match, at least in the semifinals of this bracket, the tightest matchup. And I did expect the Black Mass to be in the Final Four. I'm like, once I saw GTS taking on the Black Mass, I'm like, there is no way that the GTS moves on. Like, this is where the GTS stops. And it doesn't, and makes its trip to the final of the Strike Division. And Sweet Chin Music just falls short. Pete?
I kind of want to see what actually wins before I make a big comment on one of these ones. I do actually think the Claymore is a better move than Sweet Chin Music.
Sure.
I'm going to come out and say it. Shawn Michaels' Sweet Chin Music is fantastic. I no doubt he is unbelievable at hitting it. But at the end of the day, it is a super kick.
Yep.
And I do think the actual running, diving boot forward into the head does look more brutal and is a better move overall. I don't think it's as an iconic, so I'm actually quite surprised it won. I think it's a better move, but I don't think it's anywhere near as iconic or had those iconic moments that Shawn Michaels has had. The GTS Black Mass, like the Black Mass is just better. Black Mass is the better of those two moves.
Look, I'm gonna say that had it not been, which is I maybe it's a little bit controversial. I feel like as the indie scene blew up and as the super kick became more and more usage, then the Sweet Chin Music lost its flavor, lost its excitement. Maybe. So I do think that had it not been for examples like, let's say, like the Young Bucks or other smaller people, smaller wrestlers in stature use the Sweet Chin Music, I still think that the Sweet Chin Music would still be a top tier move because I just think as how much a super kick has evolved over time, it's what's getting people to say, but it's just a super kick. Again, that move was so strong and was so impactful in the 90s and I'll say early 2000s when HBK made his return. That's why I kind of expected it to be in the final because of how associated it because of who it's associated with and why and why it's in there, which is why I thought it made it to the final. But yes, the Claymore is one heck of a move. RJ?
Yeah, I kind of agree with those points there. The Sweet Chin Music, I'm surprised it didn't win, but again, as I said to you as we were talking about this throughout the week, it's just kind of been turned into a super kick at this point in time.
Which is unfortunate.
Which is unfortunate. The GTS moving on is that just because people miss CM Punk? Is that why people are voting for the go to sleep?
I kind of want to say that. I kind of wonder too. It's
like I like the move, but I mean the Black Mass is better, and I would have had it lose to the Curb Stomp as well, honestly, and the Black Arrow. Like this wouldn't have gotten to the first round if I did it like my personal bracket.
Yeah,
so
I agree. It's a surprising. I mean, yeah, when I first saw this list, right, and we spoke about it with Pete when we revealed the 64. The GTS was not one that I had going past the first round, to be honest. The fact that it made to the final it's pretty. Yeah. It's good for the GTS. Well done.
Yeah, we love an underdog story.
You do love an underdog story. And you do love an underdog story that makes its way and has a date with 3D later on. The GTS moves on to the Final Four. It joins 3D in the Final Four. It edges out the Claymore 64-36. Unreal. I mean, this is the stories that we like to see in a March Madness, eh? Right, RJ? Who doesn't love a good underdog Cinderella story?
Yeah.
Maybe not with the GTS.
Me, I don't.
Not with the GTS.
This isn't even like a March Madness style Cinderella story. It's just CM Punk making it to the finals. Dude's a 1 seed all the time, probably.
Yeah, I could not believe it. Again, it started off as a tie. And then as we got closer to the end, the GTS just came out strong. People pushed voted for the GTS, and here we are. It falls short to the. I would have thought that the Claymore advanced with this matchup in the final. I was saying Claymore goes on to the final four to week 5, and it falls short of a week 5 matchup. And of course, what I was going to do, and I'm gonna put this on record now. If we get a tie, at least I think moving forward, if we get a tie in any matchup, I think we should have a triple threat in the poll options, because you can have a maximum of 4 on Twitter, and I think it's only fair that if we get ties moving on, that we just throw it into the bracket anyways and just see what the hell happens. Which may sound destructive in hindsight, but thoughts on that?
Thoughts on the result or thoughts on the triple threat thing?
Both. Let's start with the results.
I'm going to come out and say it, and this is kind of like proving my point a little bit. I'm not that surprised that the GTS won this, but I think it's a travesty that the GTS won this result, because I think the GTS is possibly the most overrated move in all of wrestling. I think it is a rubbish move. And I'm going to come out and say that I think it is actually a bad finisher. And I don't care if it's CM Punk, I don't care if it's Kenta who's doing it and delivering it. It looks sloppy. It doesn't connect half the time. It barely lands. It's not that impactful.
Yeah.
It's, in my opinion, I'm going to come out and say this, I think it's worse than the AA. And the AA is a hated finisher. Everybody thinks it's crap. It is crap. The John Cena's.
Yeah, no, I know.
It's a fireman's carry slam. It's pretty rubbish.
Fair.
I think the GTS is worse. I think it's less impactful, and it's like, oh yeah, but you're dropping him on the knee. It doesn't look like it connects. And I say that with things like the Claymore, the Sweet Chin Music, the running knee, all these type of moves. Obviously, they're not hitting these things hard, but they still look like they connect. They still look like there's an impact. I can't believe the GTS when it's hit, because when people go for it and they throw it off the top rope, most of the competitors, bar maybe 2 or 3, just land on their feet, and the knee's usually about this far away from the head when they do it. And I just don't get this popularity. I know it's obviously CM Punk and everybody loves CM Punk. He's got this cult following, but the move seems to have a cult following as well. And I just do not understand it. I think it is actually a bad wrestling move. And I would say it is the second worst on this list of 16 after the Atomic Leg Drop. Because the Atomic Leg Drop is definitely the worst.
Yeah, without it.
Then I would say it's the GTS, and then probably the 619, no offense to Rey Mysterio. But it's not that great.
RJ, your thoughts on the GTS? I mean, you share similar thoughts with Pete.
So I wasn't gonna say it, but the GTS is pretty soft. Pete pretty much nailed every point that I would say on the head. They just land on their feet, and then, I mean, I would say Kenta delivers it a little better, but I'll use CM Punk as an example because he's probably the reason why the move got so far, in my opinion. Is he just delivers a really soft looking slow knee. It doesn't look good. And as Pete said, something like the running knee, even another knee strike, looks like it's knocking you out when somebody like Daniel Bryan's delivering it. Or the Claymore actually looks like a move that could knock you out. They go to sleep. You don't actually look like you're going to sleep. You just kind of take a little bump on the head from a knee and then fall backwards. It's soft, in my opinion. I don't like the finish of this. It wouldn't have gotten out of the first round. I'm gonna mention something. I'm actually surprised the Claymore won by so much in the first 2 rounds due to the popularity of the move that it faced. Because now I'm kind of starting to contradict myself. The GTS is, I think that maybe, CM Punk's popularity helped it get past, but it got past the 619 that, I thought people might vote for that due to Rey Mysterio, even though I don't think, like Pete said, it's the greatest move in the world. So
I think Drew is more popular than Rey Mysterio now.
At this point in time, for sure, yeah. The people that are probably voting in this poll, yeah, you're probably right.
And I don't think the knowledge of New Japan is still big enough for the Rainmaker to be as popular.
And I'm actually somebody brought this up to me, and I'm slowly starting to agree and wonder what the demographic is voting, because here's our updated 64 now, which again still looks pretty, so pretty. The 3D, like I said, the GTS joins the 3D in the final 4, and it makes you wonder: are we? It looks like so far we're getting a demographic that just misses the old times. It just refuses to move on and not accept today's content. Because so
the
far,
3D is a legit win.
Yeah, I have no problem with the 3D winning. I probably would have picked it. Wow, I don't know if it would have been my vote all the way through, but when I saw your bracket, I think I said, yeah, the 3D is definitely going to win.
One other point on the GTS though, and I think RJ was just kind of touching it. That landing on their feet thing, when they land on their feet before the knee actually hits, it's such a makes everything that happened before it a complete waste of time of putting the guy on your shoulders and throwing him off. Like if you throw him off directly onto the knee, then yeah, I kind of get you get that extra bit of impact. But as I just said, most land on their feet and then get kneed in the head. At which point, why don't you just bring his head down and knee him in the head?
Yeah,
like
that would be the same move and saved you 10 seconds of setup.
AJ Styles delivers what's the move called where he lands where he has him on his shoulders and then he puts him on his knee, like the back of his neck lands on the knee. It's got a Japanese name.
Oh, I don't know the name of it.
Ushigurushi.
Yeah.
Ushigurushi.
I think that is a more impactful looking move than the GTS.
Oh yeah, without a doubt.
And could easily be used as a finisher.
What's the name? Like the one that Sammy Guevara and Dominik Dijakovic do, the Feast Your Eyes GTH.
Yeah.
Where it's like on backwards on it and they throw them off the side directly onto knee that way, where the head hits the knee. That is a significantly better version of the GTS as well. And I didn't include it because it's just nowhere near as famous. And I didn't expect the I kind of hoped the GTS. I hope the GTS would have lost to the Black Arrow.
I voted for the Black Arrow. I'm the 11%.
Was it 11?
It
was sorry, it was 60.
Which one was 11%? I must have been.
I must not have been. 619 got 18.
Right. Yeah, the 619 was 18. But again, it's not as bad as Hogan's leg drop.
Yeah.
The other thing I don't get is the Black Arrow and the Curb Stomp were closer to beating the GTS than the Black Mass and the Claymore were.
Yeah. I would have expected the Curb Stomp actually to beat the GTS in round 2.
It's the
popularity of Seth and the move and everything.
I thought the Buckshot Lariat was going to win that top 4. I'm being honest. And it lost.
I think we can all agree at the end of the day that some really exciting stuff in the polls that kind of got you at your edge. You see, you're going, oh, okay. And I mean, and again, it's fun to watch this unfold because again, Pete avoids this like the plague. So RJ and I, we're in the loop and we're reacting to this and we're kind of laughing. It happened with the tag team division as well. But on that note, once again, there's your updated 64. Again, if you're watching on YouTube, highly recommend that you do because the visuals are also pretty, also very pretty. We move on to the third weekend of voting, the third of 4 weekend before our final 4 in week 5. It is the Slam Grapple division. The One Winged Angel taking on the Razor's Edge, the Burning Hammer taking on the Jackhammer, the Pedigree taking on the Paradigm Shift, the Jackknife Powerbomb taking on the Stone Cold Stunner, the End of Days taking on the Tombstone Pile Driver, Awful Waffle taking on the F5, the Rock Bottom and the Bookend because they're both similar moves taking on the Styles Clash, and the RKO taking on Beth Phoenix's Glam Slam. I have a feeling that this is where we really see popularity, which is why I see Stone Cold going to week 5. The Stone Cold Stunner, but again, I mean, at this rate, anything and everything will happen. But if we're going by popularity, I have to assume that the Stunner goes on to the Final 4 in week 5.
So I think the thing I'm very curious about in this one as well is if I remember correctly, the only non-WWE move that has beaten a WWE move so far is the Meltzer Driver. Yeah, and I think some of them have been huge upsets. I think the Black Arrow losing to the GTS was very interesting. I think the Buckshot Lariat losing to the Curb Stomp was very interesting. I am now very curious because, in my opinion, there's 2 on here where the non-WWE move is definitively better than the WWE move. And I'm now very curious to see whether there is just a full-on WWE bias here because, in my opinion, their Paradigm Shift is just definitively better than the Pedigree by a long shot. And I think the One Winged Angel is definitively better than the Razor's Edge by a long shot. So I'm very, very curious to see whether they actually manage to make it out of that last 16 or whether there is just going to be a full-on WWE rampage.
That's a very, very good point. RJ?
Yeah, I actually would be... I would be surprised if the Pedigree beat the Paradigm Shift, in my opinion. But again, it depends who's voting, I guess. Because I've always had the same idea on the Pedigree, where it kind of looks not that impactful.
I as somebody who used it on their younger brother and got them to bleed out of their nose, I can vouch that it's kind of impactful. Sorry.
I wish he hooked the arms the whole time. That's all I have to say. Like he lets go of the arms and just gently pats their back on the ground. Like that's my issue with the pedigree. And I know
The
I know
best
you got to
pedigree,
make it
but
safe to take.
You're
but,
still
like,
you're still going face first though. Again, how I performed the move on my brother.
And I do agree on the Stone Cold Stunner though. As much as I will always love the Stone Cold Stunner, I expect it to get past
everybody.
It's gonna go pretty far.
I
love
the
the Stunner.
final. I think
So,
I'll get to the final.
I love the Stunner, so I won't get that mad about it. But there is one on the bottom that I am going to be throwing all my eggs in a basket for and hoping gets to the final. So I won't bring it up at the bottom half of this division. It's not the RKO.
It's the freaking waffle. It's the freaking waffle. What kind of name is that? The waffle. I mean,
the Glam Slam is an awesome.
It used to be called the Omega Driver as well, which I think
that's a better name.
I think they pretty much changed the name so it didn't get confused with Kenny Omega. But
looking at this list and looking at where the moves are on a certain part of the bracket, my final two is a Stunner and the RKO. But again, I could be wrong, but I'm expecting a Stunner in the RKO because the RKO just became one of the. It's one of the rare moves. Yeah, it's one of the rare moves that broke into mainstream media meme land. So that's why, if you say out of nowhere, people will go, "Oh, it's the RKO." I think to the non-wrestling fan, but I feel like just because of its popularity, how hilarious people have made it out to be on the internet. It makes an appearance in the final two of this division.
So the other one that's going to get me a little bit, and I think this is where popularity is going to definitively win one of these by an absolute landslide.
It's going to be the one that I was just about to say, I think.
I think the worst move out of the two is the Tombstone Piledriver against the End of Days.
And the Tombstone's going to win 90
the
to
End
10.
of Days. I love the End of Days. I think it's a phenomenal move, and I think it's by far better than the Tombstone Piledriver. But I am expecting a landslide victory for the Tombstone Piledriver just because of the popularity of The Undertaker.
Yeah, I was just going to say that exact same thing. The End of Days deserve that. That's the move I was talking about.
It's the unpopularity of Baron Corbin versus the popularity of The Undertaker, despite having the better move.
Yeah, I was going to push. I want the End of Days to make it so far in this, but they are not going to make it even past the first round.
No,
it's my favorite move on the bottom half.
And then it's definitely not getting past the F5, even if it does.
No.
Yeah, I'm 100% expecting a quarterfinal of the Tombstone Piledriver in the F5, which means it's our SummerSlam 2015 rematch of Taker and Lesnar. But again, I digress. Of course, this is where we need you guys to just retweet, vote, share like crazy to see if we can get the best results possible. But again, this should be just as exciting as the other divisions. Before we move on, do we want to adjust this a little bit? Where if we get a tie at the end of the voting, do we just make it a triple threat, or do we just continue to push and hope? Or that there's not a tie. I
feel like you should have at least something if the tie comes up. So I mean, if they do happen to tie, I feel like a triple threat's fine.
What I'm thinking is it's either A, make it a triple threat, or B, as soon as we hit the deadline of 11:30 of the following day, if there is a tie, we should have like a quick 15 to 20 minute vote off, and then see what happens. And if that ends in a tie,
people voting again. And then it just feels a bit unbiased to the people who weren't aware of the second vote going on. I think you should go for the triple threat.
Yeah, I like the triple threat.
Triple threat? All right. So there's
the cell.
So there's the executive decision that we will, if there is a tie at the 11:30 deadline, the following day, then yes, we will. I think it'd be, because looking at past matchups before, like for example, if we could go back to the strike division, if the Sweet Chin Music and the Claymore ended in a tie, a GTS Sweet Chin Music Claymore triple threat would have been highly entertaining, I think.
I think the GTS would have won by a landslide.
Probably.
In that case, just because I think the other two would have split their votes, because I think the people who like that impact of a kick to the face, they would have been split across two, and then the GTS would have walked away with all its same votes they'd already got.
See, I was going to say the GTS and the Sweet Chin Music might split votes, just due to the popularity of who's
the people who are voting on nostalgia.
Yeah. But again, Drew McIntyre is popular too, so maybe that's part of it, right? So that's all part of it too.
Yeah, so I like that decision. So moving forward now for the second, I mean, which of course, maybe it wasn't fair to the other first two divisions, but at this point, who cares? Because we should have thought of this before.
And
we
there was no
haven't had a
ties
tie
though,
yet.
right? There was no ties, right?
No, we were close to one. In the first weekend, the Meltzer driver and who were the Meltzer? Who was the Meltzer?
Total elimination.
Total elimination. They went in the final 10 minutes. That went to the draw, and I was spamming everybody. Can you please?
Again, shows me I think there's a big WWE push amongst the people voting of.
But Meltzer driver escaped it anyway.
Yeah, but I think it's significantly better than the total elimination, in terms of finisher, and it just scraped by. And then the big rig went out, and the big rig, in my opinion, is potentially the best finisher on that list. So
the 3D deserved it. The 3D deserved it.
There was some tech.
The big rig is just a better version of the 3D.
The big rig, the big rig.
It's literally just a better version of the 3D.
I would still take 3D over that. I still would have taken 3D.
And that's your nostalgia coming through. So
how far did the heart attack make it? I was adamant that move sucks.
Let's go back to the.
Jose wanted that to win.
I was adamant that move sucks.
The heart attack made it to the semis.
Then lost the Doomsday device, which is
a better clothesline.
It went to the semis.
The Doomsday device is just a clothesline from higher up, like better clothesline.
Also, I guarantee the Tombstone Pile Driver is going to get further than the Meltzer Driver.
Which
the Meltzer Driver is literally
tombstone.
It's a Tombstone Pile Driver with a 450 springboard. It's a 450 springboard into a Tombstone Pile, not even that, into a actual spike Tombstone Pile Driver. So the spike Pile Driver made it further than the 450 flip spike Tombstone Pile Driver. So
that's that.
We'll see what happens.
We gotta hop on Twitter, Pete. You have to vote for the end of days. Like, just click it and run. Don't have to look at the results.
Send the one vote in, and then don't forget about everything else. Gentlemen, thank you as always. And of course, this is where I leave you guys for now. So we'll see. Hopefully we'll see you guys next week. But this is where we put the attention back to me. Once again, thank you so much for watching. Exciting. I think the first 2 weekends. We'll see what happens this weekend. But for now, all I can say is just that. Thank you so much for watching. Like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, vote for the love of God, vote this weekend in the third division, and of course, subscribe to us here on YouTube, and we're available wherever you get your podcast. I'm Jose Taboada, and we will see you guys next week. Have a great one.